for this project, I'm using the Brava worsted weight yarn. I had a pack of mini skeins, which I think is discontinued now, but you could use scraps from your stash, or you could use any. Actually, you could use any weight yarn. The pattern will not change. But if you're using worsted weight yarn, you can use the Knit Picks Brava. That works beautifully. And this is what I'm going to be using for this tutorial. And I'm going to use a 8 millimeters hook. This is my forward pass hook, and I've built a double-ended hook using two hooks. This other one is a 6.5 millimeters hook, and that's what I'm going to be using for the reverse pass. So this project is worked in around, and that's why I need a double-ended hook for it, and it's easy to construct that with a interchangeable hook set, which I have done. These are two hooks from my Denise interchangeable hook set, and I'm going to use this for this tutorial. Let's now look at the chart. The pattern will come with written instructions as well, but in this video, I'm going to follow the chart. There is, I've mentioned all the stitches down here. So this is only 1/6 of the actual hexagon. So whatever is in here will be repeated 6 times. So quickly going over what these symbols here mean and what alphabets and what numbers. So here, these are the row numbers. Anything that's outside of this black line, those are row numbers. And it's the same on this side. It's the row numbers. The first one here, it says magic ring. That's MR. So what this means is this is a magic ring and you pick up a loop in the magic ring. So you will do this 6 times. So when you start, you will pick up 6 loops in your magic ring, and then you'll start with a total of 6 stitches in your first round. K here is a knit stitch, F is full stitch, P is purl stitch, S is simple stitch, and here there's a WS and a WK. This is the twisted simple stitch, and this is the twisted knit stitch. And if you see that slightly, it has a gray background, and that's because these two stitches are made in the same stitch. So this is an increase, and it's made in the same stitch, and that's why I've marked it with a gray background. The other stitches that are not marked with a gray background are made individually, one in one stitch, but the ones here, it's a little hard to see, I think, here, but here, these, and these. So every alternate row we increase. So that's why every alternate row you have these where they're marked with a gray background, and that just means that these two stitches, they're made in the same stitch from the previous round. And when we are working on this, you'll be able to see what I mean exactly. So here, this is the knit stitch and simple stitch. They're worked in the same stitch from the previous round. And here is the last round, which is R. R is reverse stitches. So I made the last round with reverse stitches only, and it is marked with a black background. That's because this is the bind off round. So just to identify the bind off round, this is going to be the bind off round, and it is made with reverse stitches. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to now start making this hexagon and show you how it works. So I'm going to make the first round, beginning with the first round, which is this magic ring, and we pick up a loop in the magic ring. So we do it 6 times. So I'm going to pick up 6 loops in the magic ring. This is my forward pass yarn, and so I'm going to make a magic ring, and I pull up a loop, and then I chain one. That's how I pick up 1 loop in the magic ring. And I'm going to do it 6 times. So I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull through, and then chain 1. Insert my hook, yarn over, pull through, chain 1. So I'm going to do it a total of 6 times. So that's 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's 6 loops on the hook. I'm going to move these to the other hook, turn this around, and I'm going to start working on the reverse pass. I'm going to use my black yarn for the reverse pass. And I like to start with with a loop like this, and then I pick this up, pull through 1, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. I like to stop when I have 2 stitches on the hook and then this third loop. So a total of 3 loops on the hook is when I stop. uh, it's something that it's a sort of a system that I've come up with for myself. It works well for me, and it also helps me figure out where I am uh, in the pattern when I'm working. So I don't, sometimes I forget where I am. So this helps me figure out where I am exactly. So you don't have to do this. You could have more loops on your hook. I just recommend that you don't cast off everything. You stop with a few loops on the hook so that it helps with the tension. So your tension will be even for the stitches that follow this one. So now I'm going to move these back and turn this around. I'm sorry about all of this noise. I'm trying to hold the other hook in my hand so it doesn't um, tap the table. Okay, so I switched to a longer cable just so that I won't have that tapping uh, sound while I'm filming this video. You can do with a shorter cord. I just didn't want all that tapping to happen. So, okay, we're at 6. So we just completed the first round, which was like the foundation round. We've got 6 stitches in our magic ring. Now we're going to go to round 2. Round 2 is a knit stitch and a full stitch. These happen on top of the stitches in round 1, and I'll show you how. So a knit stitch and then a full stitch, and we'll do it a total of 6 times. So at this point, I'm going to close my magic ring, and I'm going to go into this first stitch here, which is this one. So I'm going to make a knit stitch. So I'm going to go in between these 2 bars here, and yarn over, pull through, and that's the first stitch of the next round. So I'm going to mark that with a stitch marker. So that's a knit stitch, and a full stitch is made in between 2 stitches. So this is one stitch and this is the next one. So I'm going to go in between those 2 right here and make a knit stitch. So that's 1 knit stitch, 1 full stitch, and then I'm going to do that a total of 6 times. So this is 1 time, a knit stitch, and a full stitch. And now it's getting hard to work in the round, so I'm going to cast off a few stitches. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and I'm going to stop when I have these 3 loops on the hook. And I'm still on round 2. I'm going to make a knit stitch and a full stitch. So this is the third combination of knit and full stitches. We've got to make 3 more to complete this round. So knit stitch, full stitch, knit stitch, full stitch, And if this is hard to work on at this point, you can cast off. I'm just going to go and make all of them. So knit stitch, full stitch. You can cast off as often as you need to. I just don't need to at this point. So I completed the entire round, the forward pass, and then I'm going to move these to the other hook and I'm going to cast off. So yarn over, pull through two, yarn over, pull through two. And I stop when I have 3 loops on the hook. So now I'm going to move these to the other hook and turn this around so the front is facing me again. And this is how it's looking at the end of round 2. Now round 3. Round 3 is 2 knit stitches. So you make a knit stitch on top of the previous knit stitch. You make a knit stitch on top of the full stitch, and then you add a full stitch, which is an increase. So you're adding 6 stitches in this round. So it's a knit, knit, full, a total of 6 times. So here we are. We know we are at the beginning of the next round because we have the stitch marker. This really helps because if your stitches are not aligning, if this isn't turning out to be the first stitch of your next round that you're working on top of, that means that there's a mistake somewhere and that you have either added or skipped a stitch. So make sure that this is working out in terms of it being the first stitch of the next round. So the first stitch of the next round is a knit stitch. So I'm going to remove this marker. I'm going to make a knit stitch. And then I'm going to mark this. This will be the first stitch for the next round. So a knit, knit, and a full stitch. So full stitch between this one and the next one. So right here. So knit, knit, full. And then I'm going to do this a total of 6 times. So that's 1, and then knit, knit, full, that's 2 times, and then knit, knit, and full. That's a total of 3 times. Again, if this is too hard to do so many at once, you can cast off whenever you want. So if it's getting too hard to add more loops to your hook, just stop and cast off and then start again. Here, so I am going to cast off here. So I'm stopping when I have three loops on the hook. I'm going to turn around and go back to my forward pass hook. So I've made 3 repeats of the knit, knit, full stitch. That's the pattern for this round. So then I'm going to do knit, knit, full, knit, knit, full, and knit, knit, and full. So that brings me again to this first stitch. So I am confident that I'm going to start my next round at the right stitch. So I'm just going to cast off these now. Yarn over, pull through 2. So that completes round 3 for me. And this is how it's looking. And I didn't mention this earlier, but make sure that you use contrasting yarn for the forward and reverse passes. That's where the pattern pops the most. You could use similar yarn, similar color yarn, and that would be fine. But if you wanted the pattern to pop, then using contrasting yarn is helpful. And there's one tip I wanted to give you, which I always do. I always work one entire repeat, one or two entire repeats at a time. Like so far, I've been working on two or three, but I try to do one or two repeats at a time so that I don't lose track of my stitches or I don't lose track of where I am. So if I have to put my project down and I'm in the middle of something, I'm in the middle of working my round and I can't complete it, so I try to complete at least one repeat so that I know when I come back next, I can start working on the same repeat. So just a tip here, it's always best to know where you are while you're working on your project. Having the stitch marker really helps. You could also use a stitch marker for each corner if this is hard to do without stitch markers. I know that when I started learning this technique, I would add a stitch marker for every corner, and that was very helpful. But if you are okay with just one marker, that's okay too. Just wanted to put it out there. Now we're going to make round 4. So we've completed round 3. Now on to round 4. So this is the round where we start doing our increases by making 2 stitches in the same stitch. So this is a twisted simple stitch and a twisted knit stitch will be made in the same place as this previous stitch. So these two will be made here, and then we're going to make a purl stitch on top of this knit stitch, and then a knit stitch and a simple stitch in the full stitch from before. So it is so here I'm going to remove the stitch marker. So I'm going to make a twisted simple stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook from the other direction and twist up and yarn over, pull through. So that's the twisted simple stitch, and I'm going to put my stitch marker here for the next round. And then a twisted knit stitch in the same stitch. So right here, twisted knit stitch in the same stitch. So this stitch was already twisted, so I just had to go in and make a knit stitch from this side, and then a purl stitch, and then a knit and simple stitch in the same stitch. So this stitch right here, I'm going to make a knit stitch first, and then a simple stitch in the same stitch. So that is one edge starting from the third stitch. So these 2 stitches are from the previous round. I know that because I always leave 2 on. So if I leave that, I can count now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops is what I've added on the hook. So there are 5 stitches for one edge of my hexagon at this point, and that's, you can count them here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is what we've added. So we're going to add 5 stitches per edge. So I'm going to make one more edge before I start casting off, and that's a twisted simple stitch, twisted knit stitch, a purl stitch, and then a knit stitch and simple stitch in the same stitch. So that completes 2 edges, and I'm going to cast off at this point. Here I'm stopping when I have 3 loops on the hook. I'm back to my forward pass, and I'm going to make 4 repeats of the same, which is a twisted simple, twisted knit in the same, and then a purl stitch, a simple stitch and sorry, a knit stitch and a simple stitch in the same. So that's again, I added 5 loops, which is what I'd expect. And these two are from the previous repeat. I'll do another one, which is a twisted simple, twisted knit, purl, and knit and simple. So I've made a total of 4 repeats, and I'm going to cast off now. And I have 3 loops on the hook, so I'm going to go back to the forward pass hook. And we have 2 more repeats remaining in this round. So it's a twisted simple, twisted knit in the same place, purl, and then a knit and simple. And the last repeat is again a twisted simple, twisted knit in the same stitch, a purl, and then a knit and simple. And again, we end at here, so when whatever next stitch I make will be made in this one, which is what I would expect. So having the stitch marker really helps. I'm going to cast off. And I'm stopping at 3 loops and I'm turning it around again. So that completes round 4. This is how it's looking at the end of round 4. And we still can't see the hexagon shape form just yet, but it will happen after a few more rounds. So now round 5. Round 5 is, here we do not do any increases. So we have a twisted simple stitch, which is made here on top of this twisted simple stitch from the previous round. Then we make a purl, a simple, a purl, and then a simple stitch on top of the simple stitch from the previous round. So here we are starting to build the honeycomb pattern. So this part here, this entire thing here is the honeycomb pattern, honeycomb stitch pattern. So we're starting to build that here. So round 5 is a twisted simple stitch, purl, simple, purl, and then this simple in the corner. So this is also 5 stitches per edge. So we're not going to increase. So here I'm going to remove the stitch marker. I'm going to make a twisted simple stitch and add the marker back. And it is a purl, simple, and purl, and then a simple stitch in this corner. You will be able to see these corners build up. So it'll be with these kinds of corners, you don't really need a stitch marker. After you start seeing this combination of stitches, you'll know exactly where your corner is. It really helps if you don't want to use too many stitch markers. But if you're just starting and if this is your first project, I strongly recommend adding a stitch marker to the beginning of every repeat. So that will help you figure out if you're adding or removing or skipping stitches by mistake. So that is extremely helpful at this point, especially during the setup, which is the hardest. The first 5 or 6 rounds are going to be the hardest, and after that it becomes really easy. So here I am, I've completed 1 repeat. The second repeat is again the same thing. It's a twisted simple stitch, a purl stitch, a simple stitch, a purl stitch, and then a simple stitch in this corner. So I have made 2 repeats. I need to make 4 more, I'm going to cast off, complete this round, and then show you how it looks. So here I am. I've just completed the forward pass for the last repeat, and it has ended right before the stitch, which is a good thing. That means I haven't skipped or added a stitch by mistake. And this is how it's looking at the end of round 5. So if you are able to make this much, you are good to go for the rest of the pattern. You have a twisted simple stitch and a twisted knit stitch in the same stitch, which is this one from the previous round. And then you have a simple over a pearl over a simple, and a simple over a pearl. And then you have a knit stitch and a simple stitch in this simple stitch, which is an increase. So you had 5 stitches per edge in the previous round, and now you will have 7 in this round. So in every alternate round, we're adding 12 stitches. So 2 per edge, and there are 6 edges. So there's a total of 12 stitches that we add every alternate round. So I'm going to make this one and show you how it works up. So it's a twisted simple, twisted knit, and then simple pearl simple, and then knit simple. So here is a twisted simple and a twisted knit stitch, and so building the honeycomb stitch here. So if there's a pearl, there's a simple on top of that, and this is a simple stitch, so there's a pearl stitch on top of that, and then again a simple stitch, and we've reached this corner stitch. So I'm going to make a knit stitch and then a simple stitch in the same stitch. So if you count, you can leave these two out because these were from the previous repeat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 stitches in this edge. So we added 2 stitches, and you can see how this corner stitch, this is building up sort of a spine. You'll find 6 of those. So there'll be 6 of those, and if you had stitch markers to mark the beginning of each repeat, you would have a stitch marker in each of these stitches right here in this one, in this one. So the first stitch of every edge is what you'd have a stitch marker in. And I just wanted to show you that it's very easy to figure out from this pattern. It may still not be. I've made a lot of these, so that's why I know it's easy for me to spot, but it will become clear with time that there are these 6 sort of spokes running through this pattern, and those are the 6 corners, and you're building the edges in between them. So I'm going to make another repeat with you, and then I'm going to complete this and show you how this looks. So it's a twisted simple, twisted knit, and then a simple pearl simple, and then a knit stitch and simple stitch, and that completes the second repeat. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and cast off, and I'm going to complete this round and show you how it looks at the end of this round. This is how it's looking at the end of round 6. And you can see a little bit of the hexagon shape is forming. So this is one edge here, one here, one here, one here, here. So at this point, if you're here, this should be pretty straightforward to make from now on. So starting now, I'm going to make one repeat of every round, and then on camera, and then I'm going to complete the round and show you how it looks. Round 7, we are not going to add a stitch in this round, so we're just going to do a twisted simple stitch, and then we are alternating simple and purl stitches so that the pearls line up on top of the simples and the simples line up on top of the pearls. So it starts with simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, and then we end with a simple stitch. So here, I'm going to remove this, make a twisted simple stitch. And then starts with a simple stitch, a purl stitch, a simple stitch, a purl stitch, a simple stitch, and then in the corner a simple stitch. So that's 7 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'll repeat the exact same instructions, and I'm going to show you how it looks at the end of round 7. This is how it's looking at the end of round 7. Now on to round 8. So here round 8 is an increase round. So we're going to make a twisted simple and twisted knit stitch in the same stitch, which is this corner stitch. And then we are going to start with a purl stitch, which lines up on top of the simple stitch from the previous round. And so we're just alternating purl simple stitches, making sure that these simple stitches line up on top of the pearls and the pearls on top of the simples. We stop at a purl stitch, and then we make a knit and simple stitch in the same stitch. So this is actually a very easy pattern if you can understand how it works. It's just we increase on alternate rounds, and then we just make sure that we're lining up our pearls and simples on top of each other. So if you can remember that, and if you can figure that out from where you are in your project, you just need to know what row number you're on, and you can complete this. So that's how I've made 4 or 5 of these already, and I just know what to do now. I don't have to follow the written instructions or the chart anymore. So you can just try to understand the pattern, and so you won't have to follow a chart or written instructions. But if you do want to, you can just go ahead and continue following this. So I'm going to make one edge of round 8 and show you how that works out. So round 8, it's a twisted simple stitch. And a twisted knit stitch in the same stitch, and then a purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, and we are at the corner now, so we're going to increase. So that's a knit stitch and simple stitch in the same stitch. So here it is. This is how it's looking, and I'm going to do this 5 more times, a total of 6 repeats, and then show you how it looks at the end of round 8. This is how it's looking at the end of round 8. Now I'm going to make round 9. We have a twisted simple stitch, and then a purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, and then we end with a simple stitch. So twisted simple, alternating purl simple stitches, and then a simple stitch. So a twisted simple, and don't forget to add that stitch marker. It's very helpful. And it's a purl, simple, purl, simple, simple, purl, simple, purl, and then here we are at the corner, and end it with a simple stitch. So that's one edge of round 9, and I'm going to
repeat it repeat it 5 more times. So there'll be a total of 6 times, and I'm going to show you how it looks. This is how it looks at the end of round 9. Let's move on to round 10. Round 10 is a round of increases. So it's a twisted, simple, twisted knit in the same stitch, and then alternating simple and purl stitches, and then in knit and simple in that's an increase, so it's in the same stitch. So a twisted simple, and a twisted knit stitch, then alternating simple and purl stitches. So simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, and simple. And then here we are at the corner, and it's a knit and simple in the same stitch. So that's a total of 11 stitches that we've added. So that's starting from here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. I'm going to complete this round and show you how it looks.
This is at the end of round 10. I am now going to make round 11. Round 11 is a round with no increases. So it's a twisted simple stitch, alternating simple purl stitches, and end with a simple stitch in the corner stitch. So here we go. Twisted simple stitch, and then simple stitch, purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, a simple stitch, and a simple stitch to end this round, make this corner. So that's one repeat. Just like the previous rounds, I'm going to complete this round and show you how it looks. This is the end of round 11, and this is how it's looking. It's going to be more like a hexagon after you block it. It's just the way the pattern is, but you can see this beautiful honeycomb section forming over here, and there are these corners of each round, like sort of spokes in a wheel. But that's how this will build up. And now on to round 12. So round 12 is a round of increases. So there's an increase in the corner, and then alternating purl and simple stitches, and then ending with another increase right here. So that's round 12. Let me show you one repeat. Moving this, a twisted simple, twisted knit, and here goes the stitch marker in the first one, and then purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, and ending with a purl, and then an increase, which is a knit stitch and a simple stitch. So that is one repeat of round 12, and I'm going to do it 5 more times, and I'm going to show you how it looks at the end of round 12. Here it is at the end of round 12. There's 2 more rounds to go before we bind off, and this works up really quickly. It takes me about actually less than an hour to make one of these, and you could make any number of hexagons as you want, and then make whatever project you want with them. With this one, I'm going to be making a blanket, so I'm going to go on to round 13 now. So round 13 is a round with no increases. So we have this corner twisted stitch, purl and simple stitches alternating, and then a simple stitch corner. So that's round 13. So a twisted simple stitch, and then alternating purl and simple stitches. So purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, and that simple stitch in that corner. So that's one repeat of round 13. I'm going to complete this round and show you how it looks. This is at the end of round 13, so there's one more round to go before we bind off, and that's round 14, and that is an increase round. So we increase and then we make simple purl alternating stitches, and then we increase again in this corner. So here we are, and it's a twisted simple, twisted knit, and then alternating simple purl stitches. So simple purl, simple purl, simple purl, simple purl, simple purl, simple, and then an increase in this corner. So that is a simple, that is a knit stitch and a simple stitch in the same stitch. That is one edge or one repeat of round 14. I'm going to complete this round and show you how it looks at the end, and then after that we're going to make the bind up round. This is how it's looking at the end of round 14. The only thing left is the reverse, is the bind off round. I'm going to make that now. I stopped here at when I have 3 stitches or 3 loops on the hook. So I'm going to go on and complete this round because I want to make the bind off round with the reverse pass color, which is black for me. So here I'm going to complete this, cast off all stitches, and I'm going to hold on to this one because I'm going to now use that to make my bind off round. And I'm going to remove this hook now. I'm just going to use the forward pass hook. And you can cut this yarn at this point. I'm just going to let it be for now. So for the last round, that's the 15th round, it's a round of reverse stitches only. So there are no increases. You just make a reverse stitch in every stitch from the previous round. So there were 15 stitches in every edge in the previous round. So this is a total of 90 stitches throughout the round. So that's 15 into 6, that's 90 stitches. So there's 90 stitches in the entire round and 15 per edge. So there'll be 15 reverse stitches per edge. So here I am, I've completed this for the last round. I'm just going to continue working with this. This was, oh, the stitch marker went towards the back, but well, that's probably better. This is the back vertical bar of my stitch, and I'm going to make a reverse stitch by picking up that back vertical bar. I don't need this anymore, and I'm going to yarn over, pull through, and slip. That's the first bound off stitch, and I'm going to put a stitch marker there so that I know where to join after I complete this round. So there, now it's just a round of reverse stitches. I recommend that you count your stitches in this round, but if you don't, that'll be fine. But counting definitely helps to make sure that you have the right number of stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 14, 15, and I've reached that next corner. So that's one edge bound off. And I'm just going to continue. I'm going to make 16, 17, 88, 89, and the last one here is this 90. And this is the stitch that I'm going to join it with. So I'm going to cut this yarn now. I just cut this yarn, so I'm going to join this with this first stitch here that we had marked. So I'm going to go in from here, pull that through. I'm essentially just making an invisible join, and I'm going to go in here. I normally do this with a needle, but well, to be honest, while I was filming this video, I just cannot find where my needles have gone, but well, this works just as well. So here we go, and that completes this hexagon. We can just weave in these ends, and this is ready to block and join. So here, took the camera a little bit farther away so you could see the entire hexagon. This is how it is, and I'm going to join this with the others, and I will show you how it looks. Now that we've gone over the construction of the hexagon, I wanted to show you the two types of hexagons that I've used in my blanket. The first type is the one that I showed earlier in the video, and that is the one on the left here. The one on the right is the second type, and the pattern for the two of them is exactly the same. The only difference is that in the one on the right, I have switched to the color black even for the forward pass. So the return pass color remains exactly the same. So you'd make the return pass with just one strand of yarn, but the forward pass would change to the same color as the return pass yarn. So in my case, I did black. So I switched to black for my forward pass color at round 6. So starting round 6, I followed the exact same pattern, and I switched to my color black for the forward pass as well. This was a little hard to work on because I was working with two strands of black. So if you are working on this blanket and if you want to make it exactly the way it is, I recommend going for a slightly lighter shade instead of black, maybe a dark gray or a lighter gray, or something that would be easier to see. I had I, I I had envisioned this blanket with black yarn, so I powered through it and I made 5 of the ones on the right. I would not make too many of those with black yarn. So the first type, the ones on the left, you need 25 of those, and the ones on the right, you need 5 of those. And This is how the final blanket looks, and this is how I've arranged all the hexagons. The colors are all mentioned in the pattern. So if you wanted to see which colors I've used and how I've placed my hexagons, all of that information is in the pattern. And this is how the final blanket looks after joining all the hexagons and then adding pom-poms.